Hey, Wealth Warriors, are you ready to redefine wealth and master your money mindset? Welcome to Women of Wealth. I'm your Gen X host, Hollywoods Gray.
I'm your millennial host, Ali Ramo. Markey, it's really nice to have you on our show today, and I look forward to learning a lot from you. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. So lovely to be here with you. I'm Markey Reed, and I work with women to help them get paid what they're worth. And that's primarily because women, especially women in business, aren't charging enough, so which means they're not able to really prosper and grow in their business. So I help them understand what their value is and then translate that into their offers and their pricing.
That's great. Markey, welcome to Women of Wealth. You have such a powerful reputation for helping women solopreneurs thrive. For those that are meeting you for the first time, can you tell a little bit more about what led you to work with these solopreneurs and empowering women business owners, and how it's become your life mission?
Sure. So I've been in business for 35 years.
Wow.
And when I really looked at who were the people that I loved working with the most, it was always women entrepreneurs. And then second to that is people who own businesses and really have more agency. What I really came to is people who had agency. And the thing about entrepreneurs is that the fastest way to become a CEO is to start your own business, right? So when we're in that position and we're not fully owning that power, it means that we aren't serving our clients well, and we aren't growing our businesses to their full potential. So working with women in that space of helping them translate that all their experience and their knowledge and wisdom into stepping into that full power of who they are is what gets me turned on. So I love it.
Well, solopreneur, I mean, I could be a millennial, but I feel like solopreneur is a new kind of key phrase, and you've been doing this for over 35 years. How have you seen, I mean, you say women entrepreneurs as well. How have you seen the 35 years change and the landscape evolve with business and women over that time?
Well, what's really fun actually is that women focus on connecting through relationship. And that's always been the power I think that women have. And what we haven't done enough of is translating that into referrals and really using the power of those relationships. So connecting is something that women tend to focus on. And what's changed for me is that I remember, so I started my business long before there was even an internet. I remember when email came on, all of that stuff. So I started when I was 12, really. But so the thing that I remember when social media came on, everybody thought that was going to be the answer. And what we came quickly to understand was social media was just another vehicle to connect. And without the authentic connections, then social media was just a bunch more noise. And now it's, of course, AI is the new thing. But if you're not a human that's using AI responsibly and ethically, then it's just a bunch of garbage coming out. So the thing that we now have access to is so much more. Things can happen faster. We can put out a lot more. But what's stayed true in all of that is that as humans, we have to keep our eye on the real connection and the real point of what we're doing so that we're making those deeper connections with folks.
And how do you think, like, for example, especially like the younger women that are coming into business now, and I'm sure you work mostly with, the Gen Xers or maybe even the later in millennials on really identifying and being able to stay relevant with the CEO mindset. And we'll get to that in a second. But do you have any clients that are younger and are really having a hard time connecting with that relationship part of it? Because, we have these women now that are graduating from college that went through the whole COVID years. They might have even been in COVID in high school. And I know just from my experience of coaching some athletes that some different teams and whatnot during that time, how there was such a gap in their communication and the relationship building. Have you identified some of those holes and how to really patch those up, or what some tips might be on how to patch that up?
Yeah, actually, I what I focus on is starting with what your strengths are. So if you're more comfortable one-to-one, then let's create a network for you based on one-to-one connections, because quickly that becomes one-to-many. And if you're comfortable with one-to-many, then let's start to figure out how do you deepen the relationships that you have one-to-many into the more of the one-to-ones, so you have those bigger connections. And what I find a lot of times is I feel like I'm actually like telling people this is how you start an email. Because so many people are used to texting or messaging or DM, all those kinds of things where the formality of any kind of real communication is almost gone. And the hieroglyphics of emojis are really quite fascinating. And if you're not in on all of it, then emojis only go so far. So sometimes I have to help people really translate what's the intent of what you want into. Now let's actually, instead of just saying, hey, let's put a few sentences on that. How do you warm up to that? How do you bring someone into the conversation? But my experience is that although there's a lot of press out there on how people don't know how to talk to each other anymore, people do know how to talk to each other, but they've been told they don't. They've been told that they think that they're disconnected, and so they're intimidated. And I remember when I was a young person, I mean, I didn't know that I could just ask anybody a question. Honestly, the best training I ever had in asking questions was I was a reporter, or I was a journalist in my first career. And I had to ask people questions to get the story. And I realized that when I asked people questions, the vast majority of people will answer those questions, which was kind of weird at first. But that sort of gave me the training and the courage. So it's helping people realize this. So there's a difference between being a bother and bothering people. So being a bother is like stalking people, right? And like harassing them or using really bizarre language with them in some way. But bothering someone, I use that a little bit in tongue in cheek, in that interrupting what they were doing that day so that they have an opportunity to help you.
Yeah.
So don't be a bother, but you can interrupt people's lives and still and be effective with it without necessarily becoming somebody who's a pest.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot in our business too, about interrupting people for their own good, because we work a
I
lot
love
with
that.
educators, and if we don't interrupt their patterns to like get them to focus on their retirement, they really won't. I mean, if there's not somebody knocking on the door saying, hey, are you saving for retirement? Or do you know how your pension works? They're really not thinking about it.
Yeah.
So let's jump back over to, the CEO mindset. Allie, you want to talk a little bit about that? You have a question for Markey about the CEO mindset?
What does that mean for a solopreneur, and what are some mindset shifts women need to take in order to step into that role?
Sure. So first of all, by solopreneur, I don't mean that you're doing it all by yourself, because that's crazy making. What I mean by solopreneur is you very likely have one, two, maybe three or four people that are 1099 staff that are, maybe they might only be a few hours a month, but they're helping you. You're able to delegate out things. And one of the biggest shifts that I find in terms of CEO mindset is recognizing, not only do I not have to do it all, if I delegated out, and even if I hired somebody for 5 hours a month to do certain things for me, it would mean that I don't have to take my very precious, valuable time to think through those things and do them. I can shift to the bigger picture. So that's the piece for me, is that most people that I know that are solopreneurs have no problem being busy, right? They know they've got plenty of things to do, and usually too many things. But what they're not doing is being strategic. They don't take the opportunity to step back just a little bit, say, okay, if I've got this program launching, or I want these kinds of clients, what are the bigger steps for me? And then let's fill in. And those little steps, that's what you delegate out. That's the pieces that you send off to somebody else. And being willing and able to do that is so hard. It's so hard for so many women, because we think that we're the only ones that can do it. We think we're the only ones that knows our own voice. But I tell you, ChatGPT is quite remarkable these days on identifying your voice.
Yeah, and not just chat. I mean, there's so many other tools out there, just taking the time to feed the information in. I think a lot of people expect the voice to come naturally. And like for me personally, I've been in business for 25 years now. And it's taken 25 years for me to get to this spot in my career. It's going to take Chad a little bit of time to really get to
Right.
understand and know me. It's like
Right.
building another relationship, right? It's like
It
building that
is, right.
relationship.
And once it is developed, it's really powerful because then it starts to take all of that stuff you've put into it. I mean, I've been using AI for a couple of years now pretty intensely, and I'm sometimes really surprised at what comes back to me now when I do some brainstorming or idea generation. It's like, oh, okay, you pulled something out that I hadn't forgotten about. So it's been a really fun thing. But I think that for CEO mindset, we have to take the breaks to be able to look at our business from a strategic level. If we're not, we just stay in the day to day. And oftentimes the day to day for solopreneurs is worrying, is perseverating. It's refining and refining and refining until you've got it perfect, except then you didn't launch it and it was too late.
Well, and the other thing that I find, especially like with my agents, that one thing for me is I remember exactly when the shift happened in my business to when I let go of things that I used to hold on so tightly to. My business started growing when I was able to let go of those little things that I thought I had to be in control of. Be in every meeting, be in every training, do this, do that. I mean, there's no way I could possibly manage, I have about 125 agents or so each month that write business or get paid for their business. And there's no way I can manage that if I was trying to be in control of every little thing. And it took me years. I mean, I'm still not a professional at it yet. It's a limiting belief in a lot of ways. And, that's probably something that you see is some of the limiting beliefs that women have or others have around success and money. I mean, I know for me that's just one of the beliefs I've had to really lean into and work on. But what are some of those other common struggles and limiting beliefs that women have around success and money, and what are some of those patterns that you see as far as helping women move past those?
Yeah, the average age for women to start businesses is somewhere in their 40s. So usually women are already coming into a business with at least 15, if not 20 years of professional experience. And many times that business, especially if it's a service-based business, it's based on their professional life, their professional experience. They're taking those and bringing into a business. So when somebody says, I've only been in business for a year or 2 years or 5 years, and yet I can tell they've been around the sun a few times, then I say, well, how many years experience do you have in your field? And all of a sudden light bulbs go off for them. They don't realize that all those years that they did that in a corporate position actually give them the gravitas to be able to say, I know how to do these things. So
Sure.
owning that experience is one big piece. And the other is thinking that if they start out low priced, then somehow they'll get more clients. And then they get clients and they're resentful about the amount of time it takes and how little money they're making. And it perpetuates a cycle. Or they think they have to stay affordable. Stay affordable is a really big one for women. So many women I know who want to so-called stay affordable, they make all of their services low, and I have to help them understand. First of all, you can be affordable. There's affordable options for all of our services, and you don't have to give away the farm. And so learning that distinction between how do I give someone access to my wisdom in a DIY form or a pre-recorded video form or a booklet or writing a book. There's ways to give people access to my wisdom without me personally having to coach them every time for hours on end. And so making those distinctions and letting people access what I have without me having to have my hands on everything means that I can stay affordable, I can stay accessible and affordable, and I can also then have higher priced services and programs that allow me to focus in on the people who really want to get the work done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you're creating like a menu, and some people are going to stay at this top of the menu, and some people are going to be able to dig deeper and go towards the bottom of the menu.
Yeah, exactly. It's that idea of the progression of our services and learning when to say that's an extra program, or that's a customized program. And learning, I was working with somebody recently who she had all these too many packages, way too many packages. And I said, well, how about we just go A, B, C. And then anytime somebody says, I like that, but that's called a custom program. And it just like it was a revelation to her, because she thought she had to give everybody all of the options of everything before they'd even really hired her. And I said, just give people an idea of what they could have. And then they say, oh, that's great. And I want more, or I want less. You say, great, I can come up with a custom program for you. And then you customize it.
Yeah, that's great advice. So good.
I wanted to circle back to the asking questions because I feel like I identify as someone who is not that great at asking questions, but I've learned a lot from my husband who is amazing at asking questions to the point where sometimes I cringe because I'm like, will you just stop talking because you're almost embarrassing me? Is there an age that you've seen, or man versus women, that you see people start to become better or less ashamed at asking questions?
Mm. I do think that there's an age for women when they realize that they've been trying to be a good girl for too long and it got them nothing. There is something that happens postmenopausal that changes everything in your life. But I do think that it's a training. It's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and learning to pause and create silences and sit with those silences. Because if you and this is the thing, it's a muscle, right? All of these are muscles that we have to develop, whether it's pricing or asking questions or networking, they're all muscles. We weren't born with those intact. So if you take a couple of risks and you realize, oh, that was juicy, okay, and then you take another risk and you take another risk, you'll start to build up that ability to just sort of zero in. Now, I know I come off as pretty intense and serious to most people because I go right in. I just go right into questioning and drilling into things. But I've also had a lot of experience asking questions and getting to the bottom of things. Not just as a reporter, but like just I've had a lot of years of asking people good questions. And so I don't really think about it anymore, but I used to feel like I couldn't ask certain people in authority. But they're just people, right? They're just people. And in terms of men and women, I think men often give themselves more permission to probe in and ask questions, and even sometimes, and it's not just males, but it's men are socialized to do this. Is to be conversation for them is actually feels like to the rest of us like it's a little bit of a debate, and so they're probing and they're kind of challenging, and all that is actually a fun form of conversation for them. And women aren't really socialized in conversation that way, and so often feel like they're being critiqued or attacked in some way, and they might retreat instead of meeting that energy. Whenever I've met that energy with somebody, and not as aggressive, but just I meet it and I come back with like, hey, I have a brain too. All of a sudden they go, oh, okay, now we're having a little fun. And it's, again, they don't become competitive. It's just that they wanted somebody to meet them where they are rather than retreat.
I like that you were talking about taking a little bit of risk and kind of seeing and engaging that. And I think men also tend to be a little more risky, generally speaking. I mean, that's why women have a longer life expectancy.
Yeah,
But,
we break through our bones.
I want to make sure we get to talking about your path to prosperity framework. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that looks like?
Sure, sure. So for me, when somebody is really looking at growing their business in a truly prosperous way, what we're looking at here is getting very, very clear about who your people are, and then creating messaging that is all about those people. And like people that are not that primary, beautiful, fit audience, they will self-identify and select in when it's appropriate. But if you're trying to do everything to everybody, right, you don't have anything for anybody. And so being really clear about that. And then just figuring out what are the pain points and what are the things that are going on for those people, and create solutions for them rather than think about what can I sell them, but what really create true solutions to their pain points. So that when they meet you, you are speaking their language. They say, oh my gosh, how did you know that? How did you know I had those thoughts? How did you know I was thinking of those things? And suddenly you are a solution to their problems rather than somebody who's just trying to pitch to them. And from there, it's getting more and more deeply into who are you, what's motivating you personally in your business, but how are you starting to create that community for yourself and building that from there. The thing that that I find is if we know who our people are, we understand what our offers are. We really get clear about that. And then we have understand our pricing in a way that structures it, so that we understand how to, what are all how do you use bonuses? How do you use pricing structures? All of those little weird tricks that you see in sales pages, those are just techniques. And once you understand them, it's like another language. You just learned it as another language. And when those pieces are in place, suddenly you are getting referrals and you're moving through your network in a way that's much more clear and confident, and you're building a referral network in the process. So those are some pieces of it, and all of that together means that you are attracting people to you rather than always striving to capture them and to get them into your net.
Great.
Do you have any tips? I mean, so instead of going out to capture clients, do you have any tips that you give your entrepreneurs about getting referrals or asking for referrals? How do
I
you talk to
do.
them?
I have a whole course on it, actually.
Nice.
And so it's called Power Partners and Rich Referrals. And what it really is about is identifying people who have similar audience as you, but provide very different services. And in that, there's going to be crossovers because there's things that I don't know how to do or I don't do well, but you might. And so if we serve a similar client, then we can either collaborate on something that's joint, or I can say, hey, you really want to talk to Allie because she's an expert in this area, and I think you would really benefit by a conversation with her. So finding those ways to collaborate to enrich your client's experience, that's just a really easy one. And then a referral partner would be literally going out and finding people who are willing to refer you business, and you might refer back to them. It might be a tit for tat referral, but it may not be. And I think that's one of the pieces that we get hung up on for referrals, that somehow we have to have, well, if you refer somebody to me, then I have to refer somebody to you. And that's really not when the big picture of referrals work. You might actually refer a lot of people to me, and I may never refer somebody to you, but somebody else is referring tons of people to you. And if you look at it again from that bigger picture, then you get out of the transactional level of referrals and more into the like goodwill bank of referrals. So I help people understand how to identify who those people are, those partners, and how to reach out to them, literally what to say to them. What are those communications, and then how do you maintain that? Because there's referral networks need care and feeding, and if you're not care and feeding your referral network, they will dwindle. People will disappear, and sort of they won't actually refer to you because they don't know. They would felt like a transaction rather than a relationship.
Mm, yeah.
I think definitely, referrals for me really started growing when I started getting more on the leadership side of my business too. And you talk a lot about leadership styles, and you talk about, what distinguishes a thriving CEO from someone who's just managing their day-to-day business. I really want to jump into the leadership side. I know we have a few more minutes left, but I really want to talk about the leadership and legacy side of things, because you talk a lot about that. It's very powerful. So can you just give our audience a few bars about how to become that thriving CEO instead of just managing day to day or feeling like you're managing day to day all the time?
Yeah. So one of the challenges we have is we often think that to be a leader, we have to look and feel and sound like somebody who we really respect, right? So then we try to mimic their style rather than actually finding our own style. So for me, leadership styles is identifying what is your true style. What's your style of communication, your style of decision making, your style of what kind of information is important to you? Like, how do you just physically, what's your ups and downs in the day? And if you design a business around your style rather than trying to mimic or imitate, somebody else, then you actually build out a team that fill in your weaknesses rather than just duplicate you. You develop strategies for your own using your energy. For some people, they don't function before noon. It's like, okay, don't try to be an 8 a.m. person, be a noon to 8 p.m. person if that's your thing. And recognizing those patterns will help you be actually happier in your in your own personal life. And when you're happy in your personal life, your business is able to thrive more. Because when we try to force ourselves into a model that doesn't suit our personal style, then we just get burned out. It's actually a recipe for burnout. And when I with my in my very very beginning of my business, I was actually a business partner with my husband for the first 10 years. And then we realized we couldn't be married and be business partners. And what I saw was we separated, I had to really redefine the business. And in that process, I saw that I was chasing a version of success that wasn't mine. And I'm not even sure it was entirely his, which was interesting because I think we had sort of, made up this idea about what the business, we had a team of 7 people and we had, a big office. We had a lot of stuff going on, but it wasn't satisfying to either one of us.
Mm.
And when we split up and I had to really say, okay, well, what does Markey Reed want out of all this? It changed there's a lot of stuff I let go of. There's a whole bunch of services I let go of, and there's a whole bunch of people I let go of because they actually weren't serving me. They were serving a model that we were both chasing that neither one of us really loved.
That's so interesting.
Was there something that helped you get to that point of being able to step back and look at this isn't how I envision or he or we envision?
Well, we were on the brink of divorce, honestly, and we decided that we really wanted to see if we could be married and not be in business because we were actually business partners before we were married. So it was a strange kind of way to start our relationship. We were in a romantic relationship and we were business partners, but we weren't married yet. And from that, it was sort of out of sheer terror that I had to figure it out. I had to say, okay, if I'm really going to be serious about this, if being a business owner, being a CEO is really what I'm up to on my own, I got to get serious about what that means. And I got a lot of help. I did. I hired coaches. I got help with it, and I kind of followed I allowed my intuition to become more of a guide for me around what was the most sort of compelling, attractive pieces for me. And in the beginning, I felt like I was a little bit searching around in the dark, but then things started to really click. And when I asked myself, who did I love working with, for example, it was always entrepreneurs. And then the other piece of that is working with people who want to step into that CEO leadership level position. That's kind of when it all clicked together for me.
So cool. Working with my husband, I can see that, we've had to make some really strict boundaries around what works, what doesn't work for us, because it could definitely be all in, I don't know, it could be overwhelming. It could be all day long. I mean, I'm a self-admitted workaholic, so I could talk work 24/7, and that just doesn't work in the family home, especially with my 12-year-old now. He definitely is much better than he was at 6, telling us when to stop talking about work. So
Yeah.
that's good. But
Well, I want to say the good news is we're still married. It's been 31 years. And we actually are business partners again, but we came together as business partners in a completely different way. Like we had to come up with a very different model for how does it work for us to be business partners, like really kind of in the legal structure, but not in the day-to-day of our business.
Yeah, and I think that's why it works for me and Bobby too. He has his lane and I have my lane, and sometimes they overlap, but very rarely.
Yeah.
So that works for us. All right. Well, we are talking about a little bit about work-life balance. It's something that a lot of entrepreneurs chase, but rarely achieve. What are some practices or boundaries that you recommend in order to create that real harmony between business and life?
Have friends that aren't about work. Actively, like I remember about 15 years ago, I actively looked at who are the people in my life that I knew that I wanted to get to know better. Because like I knew I needed more women friends that were not part of my business, who were not necessarily clients. They were just people in my life. And I made a list. I made a list, and I never told any of them they were on the list. I just started saying, "Hey, you want to get together for lunch?" And oh, hey, by the way, I have some extra tickets at the theater. Do you want to come with me? And I just started making invitations. And those women are now they're my best friends. And I know that I could ask of them many things that I wouldn't ask of like a work colleague. And they would come through because they know me, and because we've had that exchange over time, because I wasn't just making the invitations, they were making them too. And I needed that outside of my business so that I wasn't always in like a coaching situation or a mastermind, or, because there's only so much of that you can get the support that you need.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, the best advice I got from very good friend of mine about when my husband was traveling a lot in business is, she said, get a life of your own that isn't about your husband. It isn't about your business. Have a life that's all yours. So that when he's in town, if you happen to be busy, you could still be busy. You don't have to cancel your life just because he's in town. And you could decide to make a change if you wanted to. So having that independence, I think, means that you're not being yanked around by somebody else's agenda all the time.
Love that. The recipe to a work-life balance is get a life.
Yeah. Have a personal life, right? Like literally go out and build. It does not happen by accident, especially for those of us who have our own businesses and work a lot. It does not happen on our own.
Yeah. I think being a younger millennial, I see a lot that people in my generation, they go out to do things for like proof to post that they've gone and done things. And so I really struggle with having real authentic relationships, which I've been nurturing a lot lately instead of going to bars, going to like different community events. I've met so many friends now volunteering, which is really a fun way to meet people because there's no alcohol involved, and it's just authentic to people rather than going out to the bar. There's my 20s was every weekend one friend saying, "Who do you want, or which bar do you want to go with? Because we're going to take nice pictures
Right.
of these cocktails." So I
Yeah.
think it's really important to have those authentic relationships, and I like that you did the list of, those were your authentic relationships that you wanted to nurture more.
When you do volunteer work, it's actually one of the most powerful ways to create a network of people in your life, because you may not share professional lives, but what you share is values. Because if you're giving of your time to a cause and somebody else's, there's a shared values, and that's a bond that often helps us cross boundaries between people that are very different from us, from our backgrounds or our education or other kinds of things that we wouldn't have normally met. I love that you went out and volunteered. It's a great thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, is there anything else you wanted to share with our audience before we get into the lightning round today?
I know I'm ready for the lightning round.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, we got a series of questions, short answers or one-word answers. So the first one is one word to describe your leadership style.
Directive.
What's your go-to productivity hack?
Mm. Time blocking.
Mm, Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Favorite business book or podcast do you recommend?
Mm, I don't have one. Sorry.
That's okay. Do you have a money myth you wish would go away forever?
Mm, uh, yes, that we have to trick people into buying things from us. Like somehow we have to give all these fancy techniques to price things in such a way that it tricks people rather than creating a real connection and something that's solving a problem.
I love that. If you could sit down and have lunch with any woman of wealth, past, present, I was about to say future, past or present, who would it be?
Hmm. I think I would love a conversation with Michelle Obama.
Interesting.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't say that your favorite book was Prosper as a Solopreneur.
Well, I didn't want to be self-aggrandizing, but yes. I almost said, prosper as a solopreneur, but I thought, you know,
All right. Well, tell us a little bit more about Prosper as a Solopreneur, and we'll plug it in here.
sure. So it's called Launch, Grow, and Prosper as a Woman Solopreneur. And this is a book that I wrote about 5 years ago. I started writing about 5 years ago, and it brings women from that place of I have got an idea, and I think that it's worth something to be able to implement. And so it's really an introduction into that. People who are more experienced, have been in business for a while, will find value in it because they might be struggling with, how do I actually raise my prices now that I've been in business for a while? And there's a whole section on that. Or they might be looking at, how do I build my team out? And there's a whole piece on that. So I integrate the leadership styles into it in terms of because leadership styles for me are about personality type. And so I integrate that. It's all embedded into the stories and the pieces that I wrote to help people understand that you can claim your style and actually be more powerful in trying to mimic somebody.
I have a question about that. Do you use a specific personality test to get that style? Do you have one in your book that you recommend?
Well, I have another book. Another book called Leadership Styles. And so this is, so it's based in Jungian personality style. So most people know that popularly as the Myers-Briggs type indicator. I've used that for about 35 years. I don't actually administer the questionnaire anymore because I don't find it that valuable to people, but I do have through experiential exchange, I help people identify their style and then really claim that and use that. So my book that I'm working on right now is actually called Entrepreneur Styles. And it's using this model of leadership and applying it specifically for entrepreneurs. And how do you start to come up with, like, what's your kind of your core messaging, your core, the core needs you're filling in the marketplace, things like that.
Awesome. And where can people find these books?
They can find them both on my website. It's mrgrp-us.com. So that's mrgrp-us.com. And they're both available there.
Great. Anything else you want to share with our audience about how they can find you or schedule a one-on-one with you if they're ready for that, or whatever you might have going on?
Actually, if you really want to know more about how to develop that rich referral network, I have a course coming up. It's called Power Partners and Rich Referrals, and that's coming up in December. And I can give you I'll put the link in for you on that. If what that brings people through is really understanding, how do you develop a network intentionally, and then what is a referral network, and what are power partners, and how do you go about doing that and creating those so that it sustains your business, and you don't always like chasing people on social media so much. You're bringing people into relationship with you, and you're getting referrals from that.
Excellent. We'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Markey, for being with us today. We really appreciate you being on our podcast and being with Women of Wealth. We will make sure that we have all your information in the show notes, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Thank you again for being here today.
Thanks so much. It was lots of fun.